A 16-year-old girl sitting on the dining table with a stack of unpaid bills. On one side, a photograph of my father on the other. That's where this story starts. It did not begin in boardrooms or with headlines you may have seen on my resume or the awards that you have been privy to from my CV. Those things happened much later, and I am extremely grateful to each one of those. But if you want to know what actually built me, you have to sit with me on that table with the 16-year-old me. My father had just passed away, and in the space of the afternoon, I went from being a girl who played competitive table tennis, learned classical music and dance, who assumed life would unfold in a very systematic and in a very predictable manner, to being the person the family was actually looking up to figure out what happened and how do we progress. Good morning, I'm Geetha Panda, and this is a talk about the moments that shaped my life. The first choice that I made, after he was gone, there were innumerable amount of ideas and suggestions that came from well-wishers, families and friends. Everything was invaluable, everything was easily resonating because everyone was wanting to ensure that we succeeded. But something didn't seem right to me. I felt by handing over the reins of my family to the rest of my extended family would mean that I give the entire control of my life to someone else, and I was not ready for that. So what I chose was unconventional path that led me to new places. I decided that I would go and home tutor. This was not a job that was glamorous, nor was even considered respectful at that point in time, but it was all mine. I chose that, and I decided that I would lead my family and I will be fully accountable for the dignity and the honor of my entire family. I chose a path, I believed in it, and I went forward with it. 6 months down the line, I realized that I had actually started with 2 students that had become now about 20, and now at this point I was the most sought after teacher, and therefore I could call the shots. And I could tell the students to come home to get tutored, and I could continue doing everything that I was doing. I was still playing competitive table tennis, I was still going to school, I was still learning classical music and dance, and was still performing on the stage. So I could achieve all of this simply because I chose a path that was not conventional, that was not acceptable by many at that point, but it was still my own. And I believed in it. So that was the first choice. And during that, if I reflect back today, I wonder how I did it all. But I also wonder why I did it all. Because I had a very strong conviction. I believed that I could do it. And I believed that the dignity and the honor of my family was my responsibility. So this enabled me to keep going. The second choice came many years later when I was working and I was heading towards being a senior leader. I had 2 options and 2 offers. One was from Microsoft and the other one was from Monsanto. Microsoft was an obvious choice. Microsoft was starting up in India, and it was considered to be a prestigious assignment to be in Microsoft at that point, because IT was booming across the globe and it was going to be the in thing in the coming decades. But again, instead of asking myself the question as to what will people feel when I take a Microsoft job or a Monsanto job, I asked a different question. Where can I make a difference? Where can I make an impact? And the moment I asked that question, I felt I could make a better impact in Monsanto, which is a life sciences company, and India as a child is an agricultural nation. and we were feeding a population of 96 crore people, and we had a single crop or a multiple crop at best a year that was not sufficient to feed the current population. So I chose a very unconventional job, which took me from one village to another village, dark roads, infrastructure that was totally unfit for females and women in particular. There were no washrooms, there were no restrooms, there were no safe lodgings and boardings, and it was physically enduring. But I chose that path, and everyone would constantly ask me as to why would I do that? Why would I go there? Why would I not take up something that is more convenient and that is more conventional? And I would say that if nobody went, how is the infrastructure going to come? So more than once, people asked me, why put yourself through this? Because I realized something. Who will be the first person to get there, and why will any investor make an investment to improve the infrastructure if there is no footfall? So I wanted to go there, not because I wanted to be the first one, but because I did not want to be the last one there. I wanted others to go, and I embraced a lot of women, and I took them and created an environment in such a way that makes me feel extraordinarily proud. Several decades later, when I was traveling through the villages of Punjab and Haryana, I realized there were so many good hotels, so many good restrooms, the roads were well lit up, and the infrastructure was up and running. And that's one small contribution that I had made many decades ago that's yielding results today. And one other thing that is very heartening from this decision that I made was we had 96 crore people at that time, and today we are feeding 140 crore people, which would have been impossible if we had not moved towards the scientific farming methodology. So that's the second major accomplishment. The third thing that I accomplished there was creating a farmer helpline, which was unheard of in the agriculture space at that time and age, where 24 hours a farmer could call and get a very qualified researcher respond to their agricultural issues and problems that they were faced with. This was an instant hit with the farmers. They could easily connect with me as an individual, and I was celebrated for setting up that facility for them. So these innovations started happening because someone chose to go there first, someone chose to risk, someone chose to clean up the bathrooms to use them and survive with meager facilities. And that's what a change maker can do to any environment. The third one, I had a baby. Everyone was now expecting me to do something that was more conventional. I chose the BPO industry. I chose the BPO industry, which was booming, which was beginning to grow in India, which was about 6 billion in revenue at that point in time. And I chose that industry because I wanted to go and work graveyard shifts. And this was bizarre. I mean, my family said, this is outrageous. You have a small child at home. And I was going and doing this great graveyard shift heroically, saying that women can come and work, it's safe, and I'm going to create a safe transportation and enable everyone to come and do this. And not only that, I was also going and talking to a lot of corporations globally to sell India as a value proposition, because India was often used as a cost viable solution but never considered as a value proposition. So I wanted to position India as a value proposition where you get extraordinarily good costs savings, but you also get talent that is not available in any part of the globe as of today. So where they were using high school dropouts for contact centers and troubleshooting purposes, we brought in trained engineers who were impeccable in technical solutions, who were phenomenally good compared to what the outcomes were when the service was done locally. So I started doing this. I started changing the game. I said we are not a cost viable option. We are cheaper, but we are a value proposition for your business. And that's how we started building. A handful of people came together. We worked relentlessly on everything, starting from roads, infrastructure, transportation, the food, the facilities that we offered for women, the safety procedures that we followed. Everything was impeccably thought through, implemented, and then today, when I look back, I see the 6 billion industry to a 300 billion industry that I see today is phenomenal growth. And this is because someone chose to bring in women in night shifts. We have 50% of our population is women. And if we are not tapping on that talent, how are we going to have the value proposition? So that's the only logic as to why I wanted to go there. So the second big motivation for me here was, when we started off, we were asked to use pseudonames. This was very common in the contact center because the multinationals that were outsourcing, whether it was from Australia, New Zealand, or the Americas, did not want their customers to know that Indians were actually responding to their queries. And they thought it would not be viewed well by their customers. But you know what? I challenged that and I said, make sure that we have impeccable resolution. We will have impeccable communication, and we will neutralize people's accent. Where there is vernacular accent, we will influence that and neutralize it. They are not going to speak American accents. They are not going to speak Australian accents. They're going to speak a normal English accent, which is understandable. And that is going to enable us retain our people's own names. I want my mom's named me Geetha, and I want everybody to call me Geetha. And so that's not about, it's a very small thing, but it's about reclaiming somebody's identity and ensuring that in the midst of all this outsourcing and business and the requirements that we are faced with, we are not losing our own identity. And that is another critical achievement that I would want to claim through the BPO business. The fourth choice was a most recent one in this decade, probably, where I was the first one to be hired by Novartis as the top leader. Otherwise, the Novartis top leaders were always expats coming in from various countries, and particularly from Switzerland and Germany. And this was the first time that they were hiring an Indian of a business unit and at the top level who formed part of the top 200 senior executives of the company. It was not because I felt that I was the first one, therefore I had to be there and I was to prove a point. Yes, I was to prove a point because I know that there are 10 others who can be there. It could be men, it could be women, but we know we can run companies better than anybody else, and we have the capability, we have the potential, and we can do it. And then as I was completing my tenure in Novartis, I realized and looked back, I was very proud to see that there were more number of NTLs that got hired there and are all flourishing, thriving, performing, delivering to outstanding results globally. So these four case studies of mine are talking about very simple things. They're talking about ordinary situations and ordinary circumstances that made me very resilient, okay? And it was not a personality trait that I came with, but I developed it as I moved forward. Oftentimes, conventional path does lead us to very good outcomes. I do not believe that you fail when you take a conventional path. But I've also felt the need for people to know that unconventional paths take you to places you've never been before, you've never experienced before. And that can be a life-changing experience, that can be a real moment of truth that can change many lives around you. Therefore, I always suggest when I mentor and train and teach and talk to individuals, one of the things that I tell people is, look at your own growth. Do not forget that you've got to be at the top. You've got to be a winner every single time you get on the race. However, make sure that whatever you do is going to benefit a wide amount of people, a wider range of population. That can give you recognition that is not comparable to your own individual success, right? That is one. The second one, unconventional paths are not bad. They're good. Try them out. They're hard, and harder paths take you to places that you have never been before. They lead you to paths that can make you feel extremely empowered, bring in a lot of innovation and creativity within you. So try those. Don't let them go by. And the third one is build resilience, not just for yourself, but for everyone that you touch around yourself. Teach them to become resilient. Teach them to go through tough assignments, stretch targets. Give them the power to go and deliver to outcomes that they have never done before. Enable a lot of people as you go along and take them along with you. And you're going to have just not you walking in the front, but a whole village going with you in this journey. And do not forget the title you own with your family. The title of a daughter, a wife, a mother, a friend, a teacher, a mentor. Do nurture that. Thank you.